So I'm going to start off today by talking about AMBA and BGA's performance briefly since we last met in Quito in Ecuador in September 2019. Just talk about the last couple of years, as an overview, how we've done, what we're planning, and then talk about what I see as some of the key issues facing us as an industry globally over the next 2 years. So to start with, I think the wonderful news is that despite COVID and the Ukraine war, we've had 2 record years of growth, best 2 years we've ever had. The AMBA Schools network has grown to 294, and I'll talk a little bit more about the 300 cap in a minute, which I know you're aware of. And the BGA network has gone from no schools in January 2019 to a staggering 220 member schools, which, given that most of BGA's life has been during COVID, where it was impossible to meet anyone face-to-face, is quite remarkable, and we're very excited about that. The AMBA student and graduate network continues to grow. That's now 61,000 strong of your students and graduates. And the BGA student and graduate network has also been launched, and in time, of course, because that's whole school accreditation and membership, and therefore students from many other programs other than the MBA can join. That's going to be much bigger, is our ambition, than the AMBA network. And then really a lot of this is thanks to all of you, because you helped us move from physical to virtual accreditations literally overnight, and from physical to virtual events, again, almost literally overnight. So we were able to maintain all our activities, and that has really helped and fueled our growth. So thank you for that. This is the AMBA schools map as at this morning. And you can see that for Latin America, there are 37 schools in the network, which is 13% of the network worldwide. So you can see how incredibly important that you are in Latin America is to us as a region. As you know, we've decided to go a different way to AACSB, which is whereas they're looking to accredit 1,500 schools, and that's upsetting some of the higher quality schools, that we are going to limit the AMBA network to 300 MBA schools. So we're closing in now on that final total. But as schools leave, then we will join, once we get to 300 schools on an individual basis. I'm delighted to say that, probably helped by the 300 cap, not a single AMBA school has chosen to leave the AMBA network over the last 12 months, even with some of the financial pressures facing some of those schools. So that's the AMBA schools network. This is the AMBA student and graduate network. And you can see, again, Latin America important to us, 11%. So 7,000 of your students and alumni are actual members of the AMBA network. And I'll talk about that very briefly a little bit later. This has been BGA's growth since launch in January 2019, the launch of BGA membership school for schools. And you can see it's gone from none to 220 now, as I say, in just 3.5 years. So this is the BGA member schools network worldwide, and you can see that there are 28 member schools in Latin America, which again, and this is not by design, but it shows the power of Latin America. It is also 13% of the BGA network, the same as the AMBA network. The largest region is Asia and Middle East, and that is driven very strongly by China. There has been huge interest in China in BGA. And the number of BGA member schools in China exceeds even the number of AMBA accredited schools already. So we're excited by that growth. And as at this morning, we have 26 BGA accredited schools. And one of the advantages of BGA accreditation, particularly if you're an AMBA school already and you do joint accreditation, is that you can get to accreditation much faster than some of the other laborious processes with some of the other accreditation organisations, which can take years and years. And you can see that already we've got 4 accredited schools in Latin America, and they are Centrum and Pacifico in Peru, AFIT in Colombia, and as at last week in CAE in Costa Rica. In terms of the 2 latest new schools to the AMBA and BGA network, we're very pleased and proud that in CAE now are the latest BGA accredited school, and also that University of Miami Herbert Business School has also just been accredited literally in the last 2 weeks. And John Quelch, the Dean of Miami, will be joining us later on today and doing an interview with myself tomorrow. So it just goes to show that whatever's happened in the marketplace with COVID, it hasn't affected our growth, and I must thank you for that. That has been tremendous. I just wanted to show you perhaps the reason for the rapid interest in BGA, which again is just showing a little graphic for a few seconds of the BGA continuous impact model. And I know that Victor touched on this when we were all together last night. But it's a clear path and a clear model. And I just think this nicely illustrates it. What we found is schools really want a clear framework to work within where they can show and demonstrate what they're best at, and the continuous impact model absolutely helps do that. Because of the importance of all your schools to us in the region, we created a Latin America Council where we took one of the top deans from one of the top schools in each of the 9 countries. And it's designed really to do 2 things, to help us understand the needs of you all in the region, and then also to make sure that we can work with you to create the greatest impact for business schools, both AMBA schools and BGA schools in the region. And so we met yesterday, and 7 of the 9 of us of 9 of the council were able to make it. And for example, a couple of the key things that came out of it that we agreed as actions yesterday is you want more content from us in Spanish. There's a lot from Ambition magazine and Business Impact magazine, but you want it in Spanish. So Colette, who's our new head of editorial, is a Spanish speaker. Carlos Ramos speaks fairly good Spanish as well. So that's going to help us build our content, and we will provide content in Spanish for you. And the second thing that came out of it was, how can we help you promote the value of accreditation and explain the accreditation to your students, your employers, the parents of potential students, but also the poorer communities within your network. How can that accreditation show what you're doing for them? So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the best examples of schools around the world who are explaining and leveraging their accreditation particularly effectively and share those thoughts with you. So LATAM Council will meet every year physically at our event, and at every 6-month interval virtually. That is the plan, so twice a year. A lesser-known part of the AMBA network is the DBA accredited schools, and you can see here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 DBA accredited schools, and we think that that's only touching the surface, that there could be much more. And in fact, it's a great credit to Centrum that they are the only DBA accredited school in Latin America. But we're sure there's more we can do. And on the right here, you'll see that we're launching a book on the best practice of how to set up and succeed with DBA programs. And that book launch takes place next Saturday, October the 1st, in Versailles in Paris. And for any of you who'd like a copy of that book, just let us know. But it's the best practice and ideas, you know, thought up by all those schools. So that's next Saturday. Next Monday, the day we're back in London, we're moving to a really beautiful, prestigious new global headquarters. And when you're in London, we've been a little bit ashamed of the building we've had for the last 10 years. We had to wait until the lease is finished, but we've done a fantastic deal for the penthouse suite of a top building in London near St Paul's Cathedral. Because we're very clear that it's great to have the flexibility for staff to work from home, but also work from the office. And you need an office environment where people want to come to work. But what we wouldn't do is just have people working from home. Because I think after a while, an organisation loses its culture, it loses its communication. And I think some of these organisations that have said, right, going to shut all offices, everyone can work from home for the rest of their careers, are in for a bit of a culture shock where organisations, the glue starts to come apart. So we're really pleased with this new office. We move in on Monday, so there's a lot going on next week. And please, when you come to London, we'd love to host you there. Moving ahead to next year's global conference, the week after next, the team go to Seville and try and finalise the conference for next year. It's the same week it always is, which is the midweek in May, which is nicely halfway between AACSB's ICAM and EFMD's annual conference. And it will be in what I believe is the Cartagena of Spain, Seville, and will be done in great style, so we look forward to welcoming you there. Just moving on now to some of the member services. Ambition and Business Impact are no longer magazines, they're multimedia content. And we're coming up with 3 articles a week, podcasts, webinars, all about best practice in the industry, both versions for schools, but also versions for students and graduates. And that's backed by a lot of research that we do. And I wanted to share with you the latest application enrollment report to show you what's happened to the MBA market overall. So over 95% of schools in the AMBA network completed this. And it shows pretty interestingly the change in mode of delivery is the first slide, as you can start to see already the impact of COVID moving more and more programs through to blended and online. Next slide shows you the gender mix of MBAs. And when I first came to AMBA, about 30% of MBAs were female. I'm pleased to say it's going in the right direction. It's not yet reached 50-50, and I'm not sure it ever will. But it's now basically 40-60. And you can see that, to their credit, China is the best in the world at 50-50. The outlier is India, where only 24% of MBA students are female. But if I tell you 5 or 6 years ago, that was only 10% of Indian students were female doing an MBA. So again, it's moving in the right direction. And Latin America, slightly behind the curve in enrollments at 33% to 67%. Then the other standard that varies enormously is the balance of domestic and international students. You can see overall that if you take the entire global AMBA empire, 75% of students are from the country of origin, 25% are international. And you can see the challenge facing China and India, where 99% of students enrolled are domestic students. So the real challenge there is for students who want an international program, it's very difficult for them to get one when 99% of students are from your own market, which I think partly explains why so many Chinese and Indian students who can afford it still want to go overseas to get more of an international education. Latin America, clearly with part-time programs and the language situation, particularly in Brazil, understandably is better, but it's still there at 93% students from country of origin. The only region in the network where international students outnumber domestic students is the UK, and you can see that that's 46%, less than half are from the UK itself. Okay, then I'd just like to talk briefly about what I see as the biggest opportunity going forward, the biggest untapped opportunity, and that is rest of life, post-degree, post-undergraduate, postgraduate degree, the market and competition between business schools and the new disruptors, the online educators. And you kind of weigh this up in scales, because I believe that you hold the major cards here, but you've got to want to do it. If you think about it, as business schools, you were the first place those potential lifelong students got their education. You have the alumni relationships. You've got your own content. And it's great content. You are the best schools in the world. You have the assets of faculty, and you have the physical campuses, although in some cases, in COVID, that proved to be a bit of a liability. Whereas the online educators have huge potential customer networks. I mean, if you think about LinkedIn, in most countries in the world, almost everybody who's a business student is on LinkedIn. Oh, that wasn't me. And of course, they've got significant funding that's come through from VCs. And because they've got no faculty and they've got no campuses, they've got lower fixed costs. But we've done quite a bit of research on this with Salesforce. And it's not clear that schools are fully taking advantage of it. So we did some detailed research with 144 business school decision makers, and 80% of business school leaders believe that the model needs to change. So the awareness is there that change is needed. But to the question, is your school offering micro-credentials? Only half are saying yes at the moment, so still quite a long way to go. 44% said no micro-credentials at all. And even more worryingly, 6% didn't know whether they offered micro-credentials or not. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But when we held a couple of face-to-face meetings with schools, largely European schools, some of the reaction was, this is the future for business schools, on the one hand. And on the other, some were saying, well, we won't get involved in this because we're a not-for-profit. We're a public university. And my initial reaction is, what's that got to do with it? You know, if your students leave you at 34 with an MBA and need just-in-time education until they're 70, someone's going to take your students' education for the next 36 years. And we strongly believe that that should be yourselves. And we want to work with you to help promote your executive education, whether it's formal programs or stackable certificates. But we believe that this is the marketplace now where the biggest battle will take place. In order to support you with that, we've set up on the AMBA and BGA websites a facility where you can promote your own executive education programs. And what we'll do is you can promote a couple of programs free of charge, and then we'll make a small charge for any future listings. But we think this is a big opportunity, this space. So all looking good. We're in the strongest ever position we've been in, and thank you for your help and support on that. The reality, probably the thing that keeps me awake, is I can see 8 major concerns coming on the horizon over the next few months, for the next couple of years, and we know we're going to have to work through those. And those are the rampant inflation, whether it's the highest interest rates for 15 years in the States, or whether it's the 70% inflation in Argentina. Inflation is a problem for almost every country. The war in Ukraine yesterday took another turn for the worst, as even Putin himself is mentioning, you know, in no uncertain terms, the threat of nuclear action. We think that China-Taiwan tensions could potentially be more serious for the world, even than the war in Ukraine. Energy supply uncertainty in Europe, there's talk of blackouts, the talk of rationing gas and electricity. These are unheard of problems for the world even a year ago. Then COVID-19, we're aware, hasn't gone away. How would we all react if there was a dangerous mutation of that? And we're seeing political leadership instability, increasing citizen unrest, and escalating climate change. And the climate change issue is being partly forgotten as people are coping potentially with the first 7. So what is our role as educators in teaching our students how to manage these, and how are we going to get our own businesses and business schools through? Okay, that's everything from me. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.